Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the game where you play as a blue rat getting bullied by a red rat and his fat friend. Now, before I get into things, I need to address it. I did steal the cookies from the cookie jar last. This game is technically 2-in-1. Now for all the new gens in chat, this game was split into two. Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles. Why? Because the businessmen at Sega are physically incapable at making good business decisions and just smoke weed all the time or something. So again, for the new gens, you're probably wondering why I'm covering both games together. It's because they were always meant to be just one game. The initial plan was for these two games to be the same game. However, because of said businessmen, they had to cut it in two. But thanks to modern technologies, they just stick them together like Lego pieces, and it somehow fused them. Just don't ask too many questions, I'm not smart enough for this. You can play them together. Now I'm playing the Sonic Origins version. Hey, I couldn't find any better. Okay, I know Origins ain't the best, but it's a pretty good way at experiencing all the OG classic games. Anyways, back to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. The last in the classic trilogy, or quartet, if we count Sonic 3 and Knuckles as separate games, or... Wait, give me a sec. What is a group of 5 called? Quintet. So S3 and K, I'm not going to call it Sonic 3 and Knuckles the entire video, it's a bloody mouthful, are the blast games in the original Sonic Quintet, if we include Sonic CD. And it's by far the best in the series. In comparison to Sonic 2, it improves massively on things like general level design. Sonic 2 has good levels, I'm not denying that, but there are significantly more paths and set pieces in S3K. Yeah, S3K is the most dramatic out of all the classic games. Like, look at this. Look at it! With your eyes! Let me burn these magnificent set pieces into your corneas. You're probably wondering what the point of this video is, considering there are 1.5 million S3K reviews. Well, I'm here to convince you it's good, and just gush about the game. Yeah. I'm going in more detail about certain things, but yeah. Let's start at the beginning of S3K. You're flying in with Supersonic and ow! My intestines. That red cunt stole our emeralds and is giving us a direction to go in. This is genius because it shows the player the potential reward for getting all Chaos Emeralds early and why they should bother. You know, Supersonic. Also, this gives us a direction to go in and a proper story, because this is the only original classic game with a proper story. I mean, you can argue that CD has one kinda with a few cutscenes, but S3K has the most cutscenes, even if they're simple with no dialogue. They get the point across and I like that a lot. The characters are all so expressive even for 16-bit sprites, and that helps a lot with figuring out their intentions. Like how smug Knuckles looks when he's sending you into the abyss. The absolute surprise present on all their faces when they fall. This is something I really like about the game. Our main three are super expressive. Classic Sonic is very expressive in all the original games, but this game turns it up tenfold. It's hard to go a second without any of the main three not looking alive. Perhaps I'm overglazing, but I just think it's neat. Anyways, enough yapping about expressions and story, onto gameplay. Now, to show S3K's superiority, I'm going to compare its first level, in Angel Island Zone, and Sonic 2's Emerald Hill. Now, the whole fiasco involving again the two games in one thing means that S3K technically has 2 first levels, but I'll only be yapping about the official first level. So in S3K, you get your shit kicked in, and then obviously you chase after the Let's go! And then let's say you fall down this area and you find this wall. This is going to look odd, maybe even destructible. The player spin dashes into it, the wall breaks, and holy moly. Yeah, this is very much unlike Sonic 201 or CD, where there's an invisible requirement for getting 50 rings and either reaching the end of a level or a checkpoint to get, you know, to special stages. In S3K, these things are everywhere. And there are so many in the first zone that a player is going to have to encounter one, at least soonish once in the level. This is in sharp contrast to the previous games, because unless a player was told they needed 50 rings, they'd have no idea. But here the game makes it very clear that this exists, now go find more. and the game literally forces you into one in Act 2. So even players that are dumb as bricks and didn't find any in Act 1 still know these exist and can go looking for them. Also, these things are well placed. They're not super easy to find, but it's not impossible to find either. There are quite a few free easy ones. Anyways, back to the zones. Both of them are very simple, but halfway through Angel Island Zone's Act 1, the entire place is set on fire, and there's a very small ramp up in difficulty. In the before half, it's very easy. Both the bottom and top halves are simple with few enemies, but in the second half, the lower part of the map has more water. Not much, but enough to slow the player down with harder platforming on the top half. This is in stark contrast to Emerald Hill, which doesn't really have many enemies on either path, and you can just hold right to win. And Act 2 ramps up the difficulty quite a bit more and starts placing normal item boxes in the holes in the wall where the special stage rings were last act, to tell the player that they need to think outside the box to find these special stage rings, like with the first one. But yes, the platforming gets harder, and at the end, the map forces you to use the disappearing platforms to reach the end as a sort of tiny test to prove that you're not absolutely terrible at the game and can actually play it. Then we have the boss fight, which has Eggman burning the bridge you entered from and making an instant death pit. Then you have to fight him whilst he shoots fire at you. Now something cool this game adds is elemental shields, and these shields act like an extra hit, i.e. you won't lose your rings. You will lose the shield though. But these elemental shields have secret effects beyond just making you do an extra something when you click jump twice in the air. The electric, bubble and fire shield protect you from said element they embody. If you have the fire shield in this and the previous boss fight, it's literally impossible to not win unless you're an idiot. But anyways, these energy shields act like temporary power-ups, like a fire flower. But they are nowhere near necessary. Also, fun fact, if you go into water with the fire shield goes out because I literally only learnt this the other day. I feel so dumb. Overall, this is an amazing first zone. Shows you the ropes and lets you play around in the first half of Act 1, and then gives it a difficulty ramp after the place is set ablaze. Then in Act 2, you're forced into a special stage just to make sure the player knows they exist, and there's another bump up in difficulty. And all the energy shields are shown in Act 2, so you can easily find them and learn what they do. In comparison to Emerald Hill, this is a masterpiece, and it is! It shows you all the mechanics, tests your general skills, and gets you familiar with water physics. Emerald Hill is basic, but in all fairness, it still is fun. And Sonic 2 isn't as complex as S3K, but yeah, you know. Also, by the way, this isn't me calling Sonic 2 bad by any means, it's still super fun. Also, you know I was talking about water physics, well... I'm not going to go over every zone in full detail, trust me. I'm trying to control myself here. But all I want to say is that this is an amazing water zone where you can skip most of the water if you're skilled, and everything in the last zone kind of prepared you for this. Most players on their first run through will go through the bottom path and be forced to deal with Sonic's water mechanics. However, in Angel Island Zone, it was in a safe environment where you could quickly get some in. But now the game is actually properly testing you for this now, and I gotta say, moi, chef's kiss. But I am not going to be talking about hydrosity today. Perhaps another time. I don't want to go over every aspect of the game. First of all, I think that's kind of boring for both you and me. Secondly, I'm not making another hour-long video, bro. I will be covering a few more zones and stuff, and I should talk about that fart cloud thing, huh? Yeah, when you double jump as Sonic, it lets out this fart cloud that extends your hitbox. This is mostly useless, but I think I know why it was implemented. So players would actually learn Knuckles and Tails' unique abilities, because hear me out, we all know everyone is going to play as Sonic in their first run, and obviously are going to think that both Tails and Knuckles have the same moveset. So when they try to use the fart cloud with them, whoa, these guys got different abilities. But that's why I think Sonic's fart cloud exists, so that new/first time players will discover Tails' and Knuckles' abilities by accident. We can considering that all their abilities revolve around pressing the jump button a second time after jumping. Anyways, back to zones. I'm going to talk about the only good vertical zone in the entire classic quintet, Marble Garden. Now this is 10 times more impressive than a good water zone. By all means, making a good Sonic water zone is hard, but it ain't that hard, you know. Add a good top path with no water, a slower but still fast low path with plenty of chances to refill on air. But vertical levels are hard just because the fact that Sonic is designed to move fast horizontally. He runs left and right, not directly up or down. Well, I mean, technically he does go up and down. Not directly, though. He can fall, and actually I'm going to shut up. That's a good idea. The Classic Quintet doesn't really have many vertical levels. You could argue that Sonic 2's Casino Zone and Sonic CD's Wacky Workbench could count, but they aren't really about traveling upwards or downwards. Well, Wacky Workbench does kinda, but getting launched upwards is more of a punishment. You have to make the slow trek all the way back down, which isn't super fun. Marble Garden Act 1 changes this by having a nice mix between horizontal sections and vertical sections, with you starting off running down a vertical section, then going across a horizontal section, then another vertical section. And the thing that makes this work is the fact that the vertical sections where you move up and have to do slower platforming aren't as long, whilst running downhill and the general horizontal sections are longer. Also, this map is a good difficulty increase because you can't just press right or left to win anymore, you have to pay more attention. The cautious platforming and this fucking enemy that pretends to be a spike and these stupid grasshoppers that pop out of the ground make it so you need to actually pay attention to where you're going and what you're doing. Overall, Act 1 goob. Act 2 changes things again by adding these pulley things that let you go uphill fast. Act 1 had you mostly running downhill and using platforms to go uphill, but this streamlines the process and makes it speed, streamlining Act 2 and making it feel faster than Act 1, and also do this Act 1 tense and Act 2 release effect that appears in multiple zones, like Ice Cap. Act 1 is claustrophobic in a dark ice cave, with not much room to move around. But Act 2 is speeding super fast to the right in the bright white outdoor snow. Granted, here in Marble Garden is a significantly less powerful effect because it's not like the entire mood is changing, but it's a mini version of this. Act 1, less uphill momentum and slower platforming. Not super slow, mind you, but you gotta pause for a second before continue running. Whilst Act 2 has less of that with faster upwards momentum and more horizontal areas in comparison. And the ending sequence where the whole place seems to be collapsing into itself and you gotta make a mad dash before getting crushed, and a really cool boss fight where you take advantage of Tails' flight ability to do some damage is really cool. Again, I'm not going over every level thing at level and thingy, but I want to quickly mention Supersonic. He's mid. Wait, he's not worth getting because he gets you the true ending and a cool extra boss fight. And he can be occasionally fun to use in early levels, but I just personally don't like using him. He has insane aura and insane speed, but said insane speed makes it feel like I'm playing with ice physics on whenever I use him. However, unlocking him is fun. The special stage rings aren't too hard to find, but aren't so obvious it's easy. And Blue Spheres, which they should have called Blue Pools, it would have been mad funny, is a fun game. However, you should probably get Supersonic before the Sonic and Knuckles part of the game, because you gotta go and do the whole process again. But honestly, this is really fun and it stops you from blasting through the second half of the game with no effort as Supersonic. However, you can skip it and can keep Super, but don't, because the reward for the scavenger hunt again is worth it. And it is Hyper Sonicu the Hedgehog, which is Supersonic with the aura turned up to the max. My boy is nonchalant. He has a teleport attack that kills everything on screen. And the best part is that once you finish the game, you can replay zones with him. Unlike every other classic game, which had no save system, this one does, which is absolute cinema. So yeah, you're able to replay all the zones with Hypersonic and Supersonic, which adds more incentive to get these forms, because as much as I'm personally not a big fan of them, I admit it can be fun to occasionally blast through zones with these guys unlocked. Now I'm going to talk about one more zone, this one from the Knuckles portion of the game. I'm going to be honest, Sonic 3 The Sonic 3 half has better level design with more interesting paths. However, the Sonic and Knuckles half has significantly more cinematic moments, like breaking into Eggman's flying fortress, and also is just harder, which I kind of like. I like harder zones. However, this comes at the cost of these zones and acts being more linear with less diverging paths. They are still fun though, like Lava Reef is the final proper zone before the actual final zone, with Hidden Palace and the Sanctuary not really being proper zones since they're only one act. So Lava Reef acts like a proper final challenge right before the end, with you and Tails bursting in from the roof after a trek through Sandopolis, and you're immediately faced with lava and stairs, with the occasional fireball to punish you for only pressing right, like a stupid dumb baby. Also random, but it's really funny how the fire shield trivializes a lot of this level. Granted, these spikes are a pain to deal with, and these basically delayed landmine enemies too, so it balances it out. Now I want to talk about Act 1's and Act 2's build of tension and then release, but I want to go over this zone, how this zone kind of flips it on its head. Act 1 is tight with lava everywhere and just being more compact in general, and Act 2 is as well, but with significantly less lava, and also it looks pretty. However, Act 2 has significantly less paths for you to go through, unfortunately. So you'd think this would be a pretty mid zone in general. Very few fast moments, pretty hard platforming, and this section with whoa. That's not worrying. Hey wait, it's the red guy again. Ah, cunt! Oh my lordy lord. Yes, this is a complete subversion. You think this act is going to be more chill, but then you're put into the coolest sequence in the entire game. Managed to make a forced side-scrolling where you can only go at a specific feed for fun by making it challenging and short. And the boss fight at the end is actually pretty fun, unlike most boss fights of this half of the game, where the bosses just kill themselves. Granted, I think they should have let you damage Eggman, however, dealing with the platforming and lava makes it fun. However, again, it does last way too long. Anyways, yeah. That's just a very short look at some cool zones in S3 Key. I could go on and on about stuff like the impressive 3D mimicking throughout the entire game, making it look beyond revolutionary, especially for the time, like the special stages. I could even delve into this game's great subtle storytelling, like when you're playing Knuckles and go to Hydrocity. You don't fall down, you go down on purpose because Knuckles knows this place like the back of his hand. He lives here after all. Yeah, I do want to comment on something that I find kind of odd. Even though Sonic performs worse than Mario, and most of the time has, no one really talks about Mario's classic games much. Maybe in regards to speedrunning, but no one still does reviews on Mario. In fact, people don't consistently talk about Mario games after release, because Mario, whilst fun, is safe in all honesty. This doesn't make him bad by any means. Mario is super good and fun, but it's just kind of bland. No one still makes essays on most of his mainline games because they're, in all honesty, don't make you go wow. Sonic has and always will have that wow factor because the thing is that he can move beyond Sonic. Mario's kind of stuck as a kid's character with fun games. Sonic can be anything and still be Sonic. When Sonic is good, he is fucking amazing. When he's bad, he is absolutely abysmal. This rant makes no sense, but what I'm trying to say is that Sonic is impressive while Mario is just fun. But Sonic is impressive. The fact people are making essays on a game decades old and still are to this day says something about its importance. For fuck's sake, someone made a story essay on this game just a week or so ago, like come on. But yeah, if you like my ramblings, please subscribe or whatever. I'm thinking of covering Sonic Heroes, the adventure games, or anything else interesting. Comment on what you want to see. Go follow me on YouTube and Odyssey, and yeah, bye.